Victor Yang, Senior Analyst at JLC Network Technology. Victor, deep into the fourth quarter now, your thoughts on the outlook for demand in China?
Good morning, Sean and everyone. Well, we are looking at declining demand from China in the last 2 months because refineries are cutting their operating rates now. For one reason, domestic demand, fuel demand is declining. It's an off-season now, and refining margins have plunged, particularly since the second half of October. Say for independents, the margins were even negative for some time. And oil majors, I mean, state-owned oil company had time quota on oil product exports now, and they cannot export as much as they did last year. I mean, the same time last year. And so this is now resulting in declining demand from China at the moment.
Have the Chinese teapots and others have the requested, Victor, for greater quotas to import more? Was that not a report that was out recently that they want quotas to import more and they've exhausted their existing quotas? What's the outlook on that?
Well, teapots had almost depleted their quota for this year. And so basically they cannot import much more crude in the last 2 months. But they had applied for some fuel oil quota, so they import more fuel oil for the last 2 months or the last quarter. And it was said that the government had granted them some additional quota on fuel oil, but not on crude. So basically, they need to supplement the feedstock with fuel oil and diluted bitumen in the last 2 months.
Looking at obviously the outlook for China, it continues to be a softening, but at the same token, the GDP growth is still forecast to be 5%, if not more, this year by many independent analysts, including obviously the Chinese government set that target. When oil prices are in this range, 80 and maybe even lower, obviously Russian oil lower with the price cap and so forth, but China usually get into the market and buy when they see the deal on the table. Do you expect the Chinese to do so on this occasion? If we see prices continue to soften, well, obviously WTI already into the 70s, does that present a buying opportunity? At least in the past, the Chinese have done that. Will they do it on this occasion?
Well, not quite soon yet, I think, because, well, it's now quite a different moment. And China said earlier this year it aims to keep the country's refining capacity at no more than 1 billion metric tons by 2025. And its refining capacity is already very close to this ceiling. And some independence will be removed. And now competition is getting stronger than before. They had to integrate oil refining and chemical production to enhance their competitiveness. Otherwise, they will be phased out. Not just independent refiners, but also oil majors, I mean, state-owned oil companies too, are trying to integrate their oil refining and chemical production and improve their product mix to be more competitive. And now domestic prices are quite weak, I mean, compared with crude. So refining margins are not good now for this moment. And there are some other reasons too. And so the overall situation environment is not so robust at this moment. They might be waiting for a better opportunity. Yes, but demand is going to be rebounding next year because more refineries will still come online next year before the government can remove more. Yes.
And in that, when you see the import numbers, what do you think they look like? For this month, November, December, January, are we closer to 10 than 12? Where do you see the import numbers, and millions of barrels?
We expect it to drop from the October level to about 11 million barrels in the last 2 months, say in November. And in October, we had this number at 11.5 million barrels per day. And it already rebounded quite significantly from the previous months, from September, because sometimes the custom numbers can be quite different because some customs declarations, it's not, sometimes it's not an actual demand reflection of that month, because say in August it was very low, and then in September it jumped to a very low high level, and then there's sometimes it can fluctuate quite significantly. But in the last 2 months, because of weakening domestic demand, tight quota, bad refining margins, the number can be about 11 million barrels.
Ultimately, in China, how is this meeting viewed? Is this regarded as a big meeting? I mean, President Xi is going all the way to San Francisco. I presume he considers it important. What is the view, do you think, from China regarding this summit?
Well, I believe most Chinese people would not expect much from this meeting. I myself see quite the same with Omar. Well, the United States can talk the talk, but do you expect them to walk the walk? And just look at what they did after the meeting last year. Say quite different, quite the opposite to what they said at the Bali meeting. So, and the antagonism from the United States towards China will not change. We do not expect it to change, not now, not in the near term. So we are still facing a lot of uncertainty next year, and this is a great challenge not just to China, but also to the world, because when the two countries cannot improve their relationship much, well, we are in a lot of difficulty. But the United States and China are actually trading a lot, so this is different from their political relationship. So the two countries can never move away from each other. They need each other. They need to cooperate with each other. But that's what is known by the Chinese people, by the Chinese leaders too. Yes.
I heard a very interesting data point over the weekend. The foreign minister of Singapore, who said that China's trade with Asia and with the global South, as it's now called, has this year surpassed its trade with US and Europe for the first time. The scale of trade that it has, I mean, that this dependency, this interdependency with Europe and the United States, obviously still very big markets for China, but the growing obviously relevance of the global South, does that trend line continue, do you think? Obviously the politics would indicate yes. Your thoughts on that, Victor?
Yes, well, I think this trend will continue because China has very good relationship with these countries, and this can foster their trade. So quite different to the United States. So when the United States government is in the middle of their cooperation, it's very difficult. Say for the international flights between the United States and China, it's not until recently, this week, that they have added another light. For a long time, for months, they did not increase any international flights between the two countries. That's because of the government. So it's very difficult when the government is trying to sanction this country, sanction that one, and it may sometimes make cooperation difficult. Yes, that's for sure.
And just last question, Victor, as we haven't had you on with us for a while, the terrible events happening in Gaza and Palestine. Does China, do you think, expect China to bring any diplomatic muscle to help resolve this, or does China look at this as America's problem?
Well, China is calling for ceasefire, yes, and is now trying to help people there and trying to bring its people back from that strip. So for now, first it needs to ensure Chinese people's safety in that street, and then it's trying to help to provide relief to that region. And at the same time, it is now trying to, well, call for peace between these.
But
And
not really being too active. I mean, are behind the scenes maybe influencing Iran not to get involved, or?
well, I don't see getting quite actively involved there yet.